Three friends, one amazing series of YA novels, an insatiable thirst to relive the glory that is K.A. Applegate's literary masterpiece. This is Fanimail, the Dork-Bajir Chronicles.
Hello and welcome to the Dork-Bajir Chronicles, a podcast where we read through the Animorphs series, one book at a time, and then talk about it every week. Today we'll be talking about Animorphs number 40, The Other. My name is Mikhail, the host.
I'm Tessa, the expert.
And I'm Braden, the ever-learning one.
What did you learn this week, Braden?
I learned, guys, did you know people, who don't have tails have feelings?
Huh.
Yeah. If you ever see a person and they don't have a tail, my instinct has always been to like just sort of write them off, I guess, would be the harsh way to put it. But it turns out people without tails are people.
They're still people.
Yeah.
But because you have like a demonic goat tail, it was hard to relate to people at first.
Yeah, the goat tail. Yeah. The twin goat tails that grow out of my haunch.
And your forked tongue and all that, so.
Yeah, I have a lot of my extra thumbs and pinkies.
I mean, I'm pretty sure haunches are like the thigh meat, right? So, I mean, that is where some tails can grow, and that's definitely where Braden's are, and that's why he is horrifying to look at all the time. Because he's got tails just growing right from that leg meat of his.
But think of all the tales he could tell.
Oh, duck.
Speaking of tales that people have told, time to jump into some...
We've got some Tumblr Fanimail that finally catching up on. Woo! Haven't forgotten about you, Tumblr. It's just, I only use Tumblr to post my female presenting nipples, and since that hasn't happened in a while. Anyway, a self-called L sent us some Fanimail for book 34. So, you guys, we've probably talked about it on the podcast before, about how Tobias being like in a hawk morph forever, it's kind of like a trans narrative, right? I know a lot of people in the fandom have picked up on that.
Including you.
Including me.
Don't pretend you aren't part of that group just because you now are reading something that is slightly critical of that.
It's not critical at all. No.
No, it is critical of the take. Let's not pretend that critical isn't the word for it. Critical is just, what it is.
I don't think so. Anyway, but
okay.
like
you
basically,
decide, viewer.
this is the Choose Your Own Adventure episode of the
Text
Dork-Bajir
in at
Chronicles.
1135 with your votes.
Anyway, so Tobias is like read as a trans narrative. Well, this person's talking about how for book 34, Aldrea in this book, her entire arc is like a much stronger trans narrative, where she views herself as a Dork-Bajir now, and in the beginning, Axe is like, no, you're an Andalite. She always corrects him, no, I'm a Dork-Bajir. And then at the very end of the book, Axe calls her friend Dork-Bajir, which is a very good point. Also, they say, I know all the titles are bad, but a prophecy is a pretty specific thing, and there just isn't a prophecy in this book. What the hell, Catherine?
Have you not? Yeah. Has this person not been reading the titles? Come on.
Catherine, what the hell?
Maybe the outline was like actually a script for Harry Potter. And then they just, the ghost writer just deviated.
Well, and sometimes these books do talk about like the threat. Okay, well, the Yeerks are definitely the threat. Or actually, in the book, the threat was David. The solution, well, David's now a rat. Like, they did have something to do with the book. This book doesn't have a prophecy at all. And it would have been so easy to tie one in Dork-Bajir style. Like, maybe there's a Dork-Bajir story. The one story that they remember and pass down is a prophecy. That would have been really neat. And nope, there's nothing. There's just essence in bottles.
AI Ghosts. Our next piece of fan mail comes from John Sprague on Facebook, who linked us to and asked if we had ever spoken about the Have y'all ever seen the Animorphs skit on Robot Chicken?
I don't know if I have.
It's not bad. If you guys want to check it out, I'll put a link in the description for the show under the Fanimail heading. It's pretty good. I would like to see people's like scripts for a better one, because I think the fandom's evolved enough by now, because I think this came out like fucking 2005 or something like that. A long time ago. We could come up with a better one. So check that out and join the discussion.
Woo!
Come on, get in your trunks and jump in the pool.
The water's
tepid because it's the Yerk pool. Boom.
Yeah, good job. Quick thinking. Fuck yeah.
Okay, that turned into like
this is
fucking what's her face?
5 minutes in and we're already uncomfortable. Woo!
Okay. It's my turn to do the summary for this book, which is Animorphs number 40. The other this is another one with Andalites again. Wasn't it like 2 books ago we had a like rogue Andalites on Earth that we didn't know about? Yeah.
Book 38.
Okay, so this one is written by Gina Gascon, and this is the only book she's ghostwritten, so I don't know. Maybe that's why it's like so heavy-handed at the end, but let's see.
It's very... we'll get into it.
Yeah. So it starts off with Marco chilling out, watching TV. Everyone's like got shit to do basically today, except for him. So he's watching TV, but he sees a news piece. And it's basically, I just pictured it's like as that blurry Bigfoot picture.
I have to I know we're like a minute and I have to interrupt. It's not technically a news piece. It's a specific TV show that talks about like aliens and stuff. So it's not being treated as real news. This is like, you know, some cable guy like, oh, tales of the supernatural kind of a thing.
Tales of the I was trying to make supernatural into like, I don't know, some sort of dirty joke, but I didn't find it before the end there.
Okay, you're right. It's not a news piece. Sorry. It's a...
We just have to see, you know, because like if the Andalites are in the real news, like if they're on CBS, that's a thing. But if they're just on like, you know, the real life, what we do in the shadows, then nobody cares.
I don't know that CBS is known as like the real news, but anyways... So Marco sees this quote unquote news piece about an Andalite or like a purple centaur alien like running in and out of the forest kind of thing, but it doesn't have a tail, or at least it has not a complete tail, so no end. And so obviously Marco freaks out, and he joins up with Tobias and Axe in the woods, who are watching TV, and this is where we learn that Axe has like constantly recording every TV channel on like a stack of CD-ROMs.
Yeah. I pictured it as like a Walkman, but like a Discman just plugged into the computer, madly whirring, giving off like 10 kilojoules of energy.
Just like 8 fucking Bitcoin mines.
It's funny because they obviously were like, man, I wish DVR was a thing, without knowing what DVR actually was. Because DVR would just solve this, right? Like, just instantly rewind it and record it. But anyways.
Exactly.
Anyways, so they watch it over and over, or like watch it again. And they're like, okay, I think they say like, oh, I kind of know where that is, sort of. So they go and investigate, and they actually do find an Andalite there.
Yeah.
And his name is that Galifianakis. No, it's like... I can't even remember. Gaffanalian or something like that?
Gaffanillin.
Oh, Gaffanillin.
Or Gaffanillion or something like that, yeah.
Okay. I'm just going to call him, like, Gaffy Boy.
I remember when I was a kid, because I read so fast, I remember, like, Candrona, Gaffanillion, or whatever his name is, I always read it as Ganfilan. Which is a very stupid name, but whenever I read it, like,
what a comedy of errors.
Ganfilan. If you liked my joke that I interrupted the plot to read, text 2 on your smartphones right now.
Gaffanilin.
I was listening to on my like text to speech thing in the car, and they said it like Gaffinilan. Like it was like they had no idea how to parse that.
Gaffinilan Estrif Valad.
Yeah.
I feel like the way your text to speech did it was like racist to aliens. Gaffinilan. Like just everyone. It was just no. Don't come on, robot. Don't do that to us.
So, anyways, they chase it down. They kind of lose it. Or no, they catch up with it, but for some reason, he sees Marco demorph from bird morph back into human.
What actually happens is they land, and they're like, huh, nobody's here, and then the possum right next to them demorphs into Andalite.
Oh, that's right, yeah. And so, anyways, they, like, kind of challenge each other, sort of, but not really. This guy, Gaffy, doesn't...
Gaffinilan.
I think he's, like, about... Gaffinilan, whatever.
Thanks.
Galifianakis. Challenges them, and like it's kind of like there's some tension, and Tobias like swoops down to do his attack, and then gets like chopped in half, basically, almost.
Basically, yeah.
And Galifianakis like runs off, and Tobias is fine; he just demorphs or whatever. But they catch up with him again. Do they catch up with him again?
They track him to a cave. They see this random human dude walk out of the cave and look around, and they're like, oh, dip, this is definitely the entrance to the Yerk pool. And they go inside the cave, and there's nothing there. And Axe is like, huh, this is where he hid his human clothing for his human morph.
Right, but I forgot the part where he actually explains that he's protecting... This isn't the Andalite from the news, because obviously this Andalite, who they describe in painstaking detail that he's incredibly buff for an Andalite.
Oh, Marco cannot stop staring at those pecs and that big tail.
I finally understand after reading this book why, I believe it was like first or second episode, I said something about, oh, Marco, I could see him like, he's kind of the odd man out. He doesn't have like an obvious ship. I could see him like marrying like getting together with a hot alien or something. And then there was a pause, and Mikhail chuckled and was like, some people think that. And I think he bones this untailed Andalite.
Wow, that was a really specific memory. Good for you, Brayden.
Between like this book and book 38 with the other Andalites, Marco keeps talking about how buff they are. So it's very plausible.
Anyways, so we find out that he's protecting the Andalite from the footage, whose name is Myrtle. And Myrtle is like allergic, quote unquote, to the morphing technology, so he can't get the power from the Escafil device. Also, he's what the Andalites call a Vecol or Vecol, Vecol, which is their word for like, it's like a derogatory word, it seems, for like crippled people. But then they're also like, it seems like their culture is like 1950s, where like they had no problem saying things like, oh, you're like an imbecile or an idiot, to describe someone with like developmental disorder.
Yeah, it feels like Andalite culture is very much like, okay, so you're now disabled? Well, you should go stand in a hole and die for real, and also because of shame, because you're useless now. And like Axe keeps saying the word Veckel and being really gross, and all the other Animorphs are like, whoa, dude, what the fuck?
Maybe this is too much discussion. This should be like sort of near the end, but this really doesn't feel like it should be Marco's book.
This will come up many times, so we'll definitely have the chance to talk about it again. But basically, like, because he can't morph, he can't fix his tail, so he becomes a cripple, or becomes a handicapped person, right? So like, I mean, not really, because they don't need that to survive or really do anything with, but they're looked down on by the other Andalites, sort of. But it's clear that this guy, Gallifani or whatever, is very closely bonded with this Myrtle.
They are best friends.
I feel like that was supposed to have more impact than it actually did. Yeah.
Anyway.
So anyways, yeah, he warns them like, hey, fuck off, don't talk to me again. And sneaks away. But like you said, Tessa, by tricking them with the human morph. Because in the middle of the woods, there'd be just a fucking random human.
It's because they're so, like, believing that he's leading them to the Yerk pool. And they just don't even think that because Axe can morph human, that this other guy definitely has a human morph. They find him. They follow him to his house. It ends up being not a problem at all. It's just very silly.
They do some recon on him, and they find out he's actually this assistant professor, or professor's assistant, I should say, called Henry McClellan, I think. McClennan? McClennan. I don't remember. Henry. Anyways. And he's an assistant for a professor who teaches particle physics. Oh.
Isn't it just like felon?
No, it's Mick something.
I think it's McClellan, but it also doesn't really matter because what? Are we going to steal this guy's identity?
Which apparently he did, because there's no way he could figure out how to like get a mortgage and stuff. But anyways, so
that's dark.
The gang meets at the barn, classic, and talks about what they're going to do about this situation, because obviously, like, the footage alone is a problem, but also this other fucking Andalite is obviously a problem as well. So the same three boys, Marco, Axe, and Tobias, investigate the home where they've tracked him down to. I think Tobias figured out all this stuff about his identity. Marco is going to land. He has this like fancy greenhouse and garden and backyard and stuff at his house. And Marco tries to land on the greenhouse while Galifianakis is inside the greenhouse.
Galifianakis, god damn it.
I can't remember his name. I even have it up on the screen.
If you remember Galifianakis, I think that's good enough because it's close enough, and also, dare I say it, they have the same energy. Zach Galifianakis is a very large, muscular, powerful man. So it stands to reason that you would get confused with this very big Andalite, right?
I think Zach Galifianakis is like 5'8".
Yeah, he's
tall, right?
Pretty medium, and he's also like hyper skinny now.
Yeah, it's weird. But he didn't lose the beard, so it's also kind of weird. Anyways, Marco lands on the greenhouse roof, but there's a force field, and not the kind where you just bounce off, but the kind where you like get shocked really hard and like your brain starts convulsing. So obviously he gets found out, and Galifianakis is like got a shredder, which is also the first time we see like, oh, here's like a dude just living on Earth with a fucking laser gun in his house. So obviously Marco will demorph, and because he knows that this guy has seen him demorph once before, so there's no real threat there. And then Axe comes in as like backup, and the two of them get invited inside. They do let him know that like they have a prince who's not here right now, which is going to be important in a bit.
Yes.
But they're like, oh, where's Myrtle if you're protecting this Myrtle? And then Axe is like, or Marco asks, let's see Myrtle. And Axe is like, ridiculous. You don't look at cripples. They live in holes. It's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, it's like, it's better for his dignity if he hides away forever and no one looks at him. And it's like, whoa, what the fuck?
Yeah, this isn't even like a callback to like early human civilization. This is like way less way more regressive, I feel like, than we've ever been, except maybe if you go back like 3,000 years when we used to, kill babies for having Down syndrome and stuff.
I feel like not even that. I mean, there was like the freak shows. People with disabilities were pretty common in touring freak shows.
Oh, I thought you were referring to people with disabilities as freak shows, in which case I was like, we know who the Axe of our podcast is, I guess.
Wow. No, I mean like in the 50s and before that.
I get you.
Yeah.
I get you.
Like humans aren't perfect, but this guy, Axe is going so extreme that it would make anybody be like, what?
As the designated apologist of the podcast, what I don't believe Axe is saying this guy needs to just like live in a hole and die. I think from the same vein as like all Andalites are made to be like warrior poets and to obey higher authorities. It's coming from a place of these people who are not useful as warriors should live a life of solitude and thought, is what I thought. Not necessarily like a more virulent sort of go die mentality.
I think that also we should talk about this later, because there's some stuff that comes up when we do eventually meet Myrtle that's a little like, oh, okay. It made me think the same thing. But anyways, well, that's at the very end, so let's get going. Spoilers! So obviously they're like, Axe is like, oh, it'd be ridiculous to see Myrtle. And Mark was like, well, that's fucked, but okay, this guy's got like a tail blade and shit, so I'm not going to argue with him. Then the Galifianakis is like, hey, you want to share this like drug root or whatever. It's like an opioid root or something.
Yeah.
It's like coffee.
That's what they
It's
said.
like heroin. It's like heroin.
You want to go step on some heroin with me, bud?
Axe compared it to coffee or tea. So I believe I certainly wouldn't go as hard as heroin. Maybe Axe was just being, it's more of a like an early medical cocaine.
I mean, I'm being hyperbolic, as the kids say. But
Yes.
yeah, I get you. No, yeah, it's not, obviously Axe is not like woozy afterwards or anything.
I mean, if anything, it's pure ecstasy. You know how excited he was to step on that?
He was pretty happy about it. Also, well, let's talk about that later too, because I have some notes about that. But anyways, so as Axe and this Andalite are kind of cajoling and having this root crushed underneath their feet, Marco looks around the greenhouse a bit and he sees bees and very intelligently acquires one of them, like honeybees.
Yeah.
Because obviously, and he's like, oh, but there's no hive that I can see. I mean, presumptuous, but okay. So he's like, the bees must be getting in and out of the force field somehow, which is pretty smart, actually, for him to think that. Anyways,
Yeah.
they,
clever.
Marco, I guess more than Axe, says like, oh yeah, and like, because this guy's like, can I meet your prince? And they're like, yeah, sure, you can definitely meet our prince, which they don't tell him is a human named Jake. They just sort of let him believe that it's an Andalite, right?
A dude.
Which will definitely be important in a bit here. So the mission is basically like, well, oh, sorry, there is a recon mission as bees. That's pretty critical as well.
They do sneaky recon.
They sort of talk about it, and Jake's like, no, like we can't be like rush into this, and like I need to be home because my mom's making my favorite dinner, and it would be weird if I wasn't there, which is a wild thing to say.
But also like fucking struggles of being 14. Am I right?
In under a minute, we have to name each of the main 6 Animorphs' favorite food.
Tobias. Roadkill.
Okay, wait. Let's start with the easy ones. Yeah, so Tobias, like a rabbit, or not roadkill, because he specifically doesn't like roadkill.
No.
A rabbit.
Tobias, rabbit.
Axe, cinnamon buns.
Cinnamon buns.
Of course.
Cassie's got to be like that, I can't believe it's not meat shit that they serve at like...
I think it's like her dad's lasagna, but like with the fake meat. Yeah.
Yeah, and super spicy.
the Nofu or whatever the hell it's called.
Mm-hmm.
And then Rachel's got to be like a fucking filet mignon or something like that.
Yeah,
right?
no, she's like fucking fancy steak, fancy
She
potatoes.
is the child of a lawyer and a TV producer. She has never eaten a steak less than $20.
Okay.
Marco, fucking enchiladas, extra sauce.
Hey, whoa! That's my rung. You can't say that. It sounds like you're being sincere. It sounds like you're letting the mask down. Me, I'm one of those irony assholes. I can get away with it.
Wait, we're wasting precious 10-second blocks here. Jake.
Spaghetti meatballs.
I feel like it's some kind of just like broth with nothing in it.
I feel like he's like half burnt charcoal cheeseburgers that his dad makes, because at least it's not some gross lentil salad.
Definitely like his dad, like something made by his family specifically. Like my dad's special spaghetti.
He's like the child of an immigrant from Italy all of a sudden.
Yes.
Yeah, we never talk about it, but like Jake's dad is like, his mom is Jewish, so he's part Jewish, but his dad is full on New York Italian, baby.
Hey, don't touch my spaghetti. No, okay. Jake, I think you were right. It's like burgers or something like very all American, but something that his family has made poorly his entire life, so that he grows up thinking that's like the best version of that thing. And then he goes to restaurants. He's like, I don't like how these burgers are like so uniform in color and taste.
I don't like how the burger is like, there's no hunk of char at the end that you just kind of like chew on like burger gum at the end of your meal.
You've gotta char the outside to seal the flavor in. The whole thing. You gotta char the whole thing.
So Marco and Rachel do a secret mission together. An intimate. They need to be really close to each other. Nah, that's gross.
That's really gross.
So Rachel doesn't have the bee morph, so she's just like hanging out as a spy. They kind of agree, like, because Jake's like, oh, we can't do anything today. And Marco's like, well, I'm going to. And Rachel, because they're like the last two ones left in the barn's like, yeah, it would be dumb if we didn't do something today, right?
I think it was like Marco was going to test out the bee morph and just make sure that he can actually get through the force field. And then Rachel's like in eagle morph to watch him to see if he doesn't, get eaten by, spoiler alert, a robber fly.
Oh, yeah. And also, there's like probably the best moment, the most intelligent moment of the entire series, which is Marco Googles honeybees before morphing it, and then like spits out so much trivia about honeybees while he's in morph. I'm like, oh my god, this is what this should have been from the beginning. We know they had internet because Rachel was flicking the bean to Jeremy Jason McCall in number 12.
I think what we are seeing what I don't know the word for it, but like a series evolving with the world it's in. Like Google, when we read book 12, was not the same popular thing as it was here and now.
It was like asking the chubby guy that you sometimes talk to on IRC if he's got any more sweet pics of JJM. Anyways, so yeah. They go on this mission. Marco does find out, like, he has to fight the hive instincts, but they're not nearly as bad as the ants and termites and stuff. But eventually gets control of himself. Then he gets, like, attacked by a robber fly, which I looked up. It's a pretty crazy predator fly that eats bees, which is also pretty wild. Mm-hmm. But eventually Marco gets in through... Oh, yeah, and there's a point there where he makes, like, bees can see different spectrums, like many animals can, than humans. And one of the spectrums interacts with the force field in such a way where he can see the force field and sees that there's actually a hole in the force field, and that's where the bees are getting in and out. So he cruises around the house, and apparently bees also have a good sense of smell, which I don't know if that's 100% true, but...
I mean, I think they have to have some, maybe not smell, but they can probably sense something.
Imagine it's sight, right?
Well, I think their antenna would pick up some kind of pheromones, not in any kind of smell that we would consider it, but smell would be the closest thing. Like, I'm thinking the pheromones of the plants.
Oh, okay, the pheromones of the plants. Yeah. Tessa.
They're seeing the plants are horny.
I'm saying, like, we know they communicate with dances, which are visual, and we know that they gravitate towards things that are incredibly bright, like flowers. I mean, we could just Google this, but anyways.
We're not Marco, come on.
Marco is like, I have evidence as a bee that Myrtle hasn't been around here forever, if ever. Which is, like, obviously a big deal, right? Because Galifianakis said that, Galifianakin Skywalker said that Myrtle was being held in the house. So that's new information that he's not being held there. So they talk it over. And Axe has like a theory, which I felt like came out of kind of nowhere, but he was like, oh, I think I have a theory that the reason why this guy wants to meet Jake, a supposed like Andalite Prince warrior, is because he wants to Nothlit as quote unquote Jake the Prince's DNA. Because Galaboy has something called Sula's disease, which is basically like a degenerative chronic nerve disease.
The simplest word for an alien concept we have gotten to hear yet.
Yeah. Basically. Yeah.
It's the most succinct way Axe has ever explained anything alien.
And no one had to interrupt him and tell him to like dumb it down either.
I know.
But basically, yeah, like, so anyone who has this disease knows they're going to die soon. And the only way out of it for an Andalite is to Nothlit. But this guy, being like a beefy Andalite guy, doesn't want to Nothlit as anything but an Andalite, and also doesn't want to Nothlit as anything other than another, at least mildly similarly beefy Andalite.
So not Axe's little twink form.
Oh, what?
Also, the reason Axe figures this out is because the Ilpsar roots, the Andalite cocaine they were stomping on earlier, that's like, yeah, it's coffee, but it also helps with the pain of the Sula's disease. So that's where he, like, connects the dots.
It's almost like saying, like, oh, this person offered me juniper tea at their house. They're clearly trying to give people abortions. It's like, well, no, like, they might just have juniper tea. Like, yeah, because juniper causes miscarriage.
I mean, but to be fair, I've never heard of anybody just offering juniper tea, so you might be onto something there, Miguel.
Chamomile tea apparently can cause miscarriages as well. Okay. When Marco and Rachel get back with this new information that Myrtle's not there, I think I said all this already. So they talk about the Sula's disease thing, and like, okay, so their working theory is that this guy's going to try to acquire Jake as an Andalite and then Noth it out, even though Axe is like, this is considered to be pretty shitty move for an Andalite with this disease.
It's like the coward's way. Which, if we know anything from book 38, they fucking sentence cowards to, like, life in the brig. So.
Oh, yeah, true. So, anyways, the plan moving forward is Jake will meet with Gallinanicus, but they're going to all, like, follow him as backup. So, Marco's going in as backup as a bee. Like, so hidden, essentially, as with Jake. And then the others are, like, nearby, and Marco can thought speak to them if he needs more backup. So Jake goes to the house, and once Gallinanicus starts acting, like, Jake won't, quote-unquote, demorph back to Andalite. Like, he just stays in his kid's body. Actually, there's, like, a really good back and forth between this guy and Jake. Like, this guy demorphs from his human morph back into his massive Andalite body, and Jake's this, like, puny little 13-year-old, 14-year-old kid, and the guy's like, demorph now. It's insulting to stay in this child's body. And Jake's like, fuck you.
I'm cool, bro.
Yeah, he doesn't even really say that he's human. He's like, what if I don't want to? Like,
it makes no matter what form my physical form is right now. We can talk either way. And it's like, it's basically like the Animorphs TV show where Jake eats snails in front of Visser 3. It's that kind of Big Jake energy.
Big Jake energy.
That's what I'm talking about.
To make it work, it has to be Big David energy.
No, because they call him Big Jake in the books.
Oh, fuck, they do.
You got you there.
Anyways, when this guy starts getting all huffy and actually, like, becomes violent, like, threatening violence, Marco's like, yeah, you guys need to come in. So they all bust in their battle morphs, and Marco demorphs back to human, since obviously, again, there's no danger there because he's already seen him. And they both like, which is pretty funny because it's like there's like the battle morph buddies that bust through like a window in the Andalite part of the house. And then it's just Jake and Marco, what I assume is like looking up at this guy with their arms crossed. And they're like, what are you going to do about it? Anyways, this big tough guy.
That's when Jake is just like, hey, I'm walking here.
Good joke. That's a good joke.
Yeah. Hell yeah. Wow.
So Galileo's like, okay, obviously I can't win a fight against like all six of you. So he explains.
Well, he could with a gun. That's the thing.
If only he had a fucking gun. Oh, wait, he does have the shredder, but I think that's still in the greenhouse.
That's a gun. A shredder is a gun.
It's not a fully automatic weapon, Brayden.
Yes, it is. The shredders are fully automatic. They're rifles.
No, they're not. No, they're not. They're handguns.
No, you're thinking of...
No, I think they're flashlights, you guys.
Wait, isn't it a shredder? What's the rifle?
I know that I think the shredders are like, they're not rifles. I think they are more like a handgun, and then they have like a cannon, which is more...
Drake on beam are hand weapons. Shredders are rifles.
Shredders are Drake and beams, just... You can go to stun. So I think they're still handguns.
I'm Googling it.
I'm looking at it now, too. I think it's up to interpretation, honestly.
I've always thought of them as handguns, though.
I have, too, because of the way they talk about it being held in one fucking hand, which you can't do with a rifle, so...
And, like, the kids have gotten their paws on Drake and beams and shredders before and been able to hold them, so...
Oh, okay, yeah. Shredder is just the general term for Andalite Andalite energy weapon. It's not necessarily single-handed or rifle, or it can also mean there can be like shipborne shredders.
Yeah, I think it's just the general term for all of them.
Yeah, and the Drake and beams is the same thing, but for the Yeerks, basically. It's basically the red lasers for the Imperial fighters, and the green lasers for the rebel fighters in Star Wars. It's literally that. No one's getting that reference. That's fair.
No, I get it. Yeah.
Star Trek? No, the only sci-fi I know is Animorphs.
I was going to make a breakdown of which Animorph is which Star Wars character, but I'm not going to do that.
There's only one girl in all of Star Wars, and there's 2 in Animorphs. So already we've lost the plot.
There's so many more than one girl. But moving on. So the guy backs down and he explains that Myrtle is actually being held hostage by Visser 3, because obviously Visser 3 found them out after this video got released. And he's saying to Gallifani that if you bring me, because like obviously Visser 3 like figures out, okay, like this guy's got Sula's disease and this guy's got no tailblade and can't morph, so neither of these Andalites are useful to me. So he makes a deal with the buff Andalite, and he's like, if you can bring me a healthy Andalite body, which is exactly what he wanted to do with Prince Jake, I'll give you Myrtle in exchange. Here's where we learn that the big Andalite obviously like values his friendship more than literally anything else, including the war effort.
That's how I feel about you guys.
Aww. Visser 3 didn't figure out that Ganny Boy had Sula's disease. Myrtle told Visser 3 so that Gaffaniland wouldn't just sacrifice himself to save Myrtle. Myrtle was like, oh no, you bitch, you're also gonna stay alive. And leaked the secret. So yeah.
Sure, yeah.
It's just further proof about how close friends they are.
Yes, exactly. And the even better proof, so obviously, Gallifani teams up with the Animorphs begrudgingly to save Myrtle. For some reason, begrudgingly, because I feel like he's got nothing to lose at this point. But then he reveals to them, like, me and Myrtle are such good friends that we can literally thought speak from like miles away. It's like, okay, all right. I don't think that's how that works. Like, me and Brayden are so close that if I yell from my house, he can hear me.
That really, yeah. I mean, does that work?
I think it's even like, because they say unless we are on separate planets, we can always hear each other, which is some fucking soulmate AU shit over here. I love it.
Yeah, I don't want to say it doesn't work, but like, how does that work? I mean, aren't the Animorphs able? Like, wouldn't the Animorphs be able to do that now?
No, because they're not fucking.
Are there shades of it? Like, Jake and Cassie and Marco and Jake can, like, thought speak further away than, say, Marco and Rachel can thought speak? Like, what? Like, anyways.
I think we have heard similarities to that. In book 3, when the gang's all fish and they go up into the big container, Tobias and Rachel can talk for longer than he can be in contact with anybody else. So I think it is something to do with the strength of the relationship.
That's like
or maybe
such a
it's
fucked up
like
thing, but
how much you practice it. So if you private thought speak a lot with one person, then you're going to hear them for longer.
Who knows? Yeah, you might. I don't know. We can't answer it, I guess, but yeah. Anyways, Myrtle is like, yeah, I'm being held, blah, 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 kind of describes like what he calls a graveyard. They figure out it's an old train station, and he's being hauled around in a U-Haul, which is pretty smart, actually, when you think about it, on the Yeerk's part. They keep moving him. That was a plot point earlier. It's like, that's why they can't just, like, go to where he is they keep moving him. They find him in the span of half a chapter, so wasn't that hard. But anyways, there's a bunch of Dork-Bajir there, obviously. The fight mostly happens off screen, as Marco
always is.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, I feel like they were just like hiding in train, like sea cans, which is confusing.
Wild.
But so Marco as a gorilla, while the others are fighting off the Dork-Bajir and stuff, Marco fucks up the U-Haul, but then gets thrown off, and Rachel kind of like makes the U-Haul slam into the side of a train car, which I'm assuming would kill the driver, but they say the driver gets away. Anyways, Gallistoni like cuts open the back of the U-Haul, and they're like, "Hey, best friends," and his friend is like really annoyingly like Yoda-ish with his, "Yeah, I am as I was." It's like,
yeah,
dog, that's a useless thing to say.
I'm
like,
one with the Force, and the Force is with me. Much.
Like I said, like a sort of like a monk type.
Anyways, so Gallifani Fenakis goes and is like, well, we're going to live our life in peace, so please just leave us alone because, like, we can't do anything. You know we're going to die. Leave me alone. Not addressing the fact that only he will die soon and his friend will not die for some time until he can no longer, like, get groceries from his other diseased friend. Anyways, afterwards, Marco flies to Galifianakis' house and tells Myrtle, like, hey, when your friend dies, here's my phone number. Literally, he's just like, when your friend, dies, call us. Which,
I mean, it's really nice because, like, it was like, I know how much it sucks to be alone. And I think Marco was really thinking about how bad his dad got when his mom, quote unquote, died. And he just doesn't want that to happen to Myrtle, especially because Myrtle can't leave the house and, like, morph human or be in disguise or anything.
well, I mean, like, I guess the thing is we don't know if there's winter where they live, and so far we haven't seen winter, so it's possible they live somewhere with, like, I mean, there's tons of places that don't have snow in the winter, right? And the grass grows all year long. So if they could set up their force field to have a hologram where he could, like, eat the grass that continues to grow and no one could see him from above, it's not impossible that he could live forever, but you would just go crazy also.
He would just be lonely. I mean, that's the biggest thing, I think, is just how much it sucks to be alone. Pretty sure Marco says that at the end of the book, too. Like, I know how much it sucks to be alone. And then he goes, hey, when your friend dies, hit me up.
When your friend dies, we'll be your friend. Until then, stay in your hole.
No, it's more like they asked not to be disturbed, right? Like, it's very clear that they just want to kind of do their own thing,
I feel like the answer, as it is unfortunately in a lot of things, is like, when your friend dies, we know these, like, hyper advanced dog robots that live underground with fucking grass, and they can't even hurt each other, much less you.
Oh yeah, that's an option.
Also, do you want to just move there because they probably have a cure to your friend's fucking disease? Just saying.
Just saying, they might be able to figure something out.
Oh god, Eric
they
breaks
could use the
series.
cheese so much more.
Also, just give him a robot tail. Just give Myrtle a robot tail. Just give everyone who's missing limbs robot anything.
Easy answer.
But that would be so heavy, and you'd have to connect the nerves, like automail. It's a whole thing. Anyway, my main point is that these two Andalites are gay.
I mean, I feel like that's everybody's point on the internet, basically.
Yeah.
I think it was almost confirmed once by Catherine and Grant, too. Like, that the only thing that was stopping them was the fact that they published these books in the 90s for kids. And the publishers are like, kids don't need access to gay aliens. Nope.
I don't know why, but I was picturing Myrtle much younger? I don't know.
It said they grew up together. Like, Gaffinilin said that they've been friends since childhood and they grew up together.
Okay. I probably just read over that part somehow.
You read too fast too, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, aliens can be gay and also ableist. That's the point of this book. So, yeah.
Wait, I don't want to skip over that because, like, this is sort of the same logic as the Rachel Coe problem of just, like, people. It's almost like, as crazy as it is, like, them being gay, and I don't want to, like, get too far into the paint in, like, isms and stuff, but it's almost more heteronormative in a crazy way that they're gay instead of just friends. Because
speaking of, like, because dudes can't be friends kind of thing?
Exactly, because it's like, wait, two guys can't just be friends, like, they have to be having sex?
If two dudes live together past a certain point, like, oh, yo, they're on it. Let me rephrase. That means they are secretly gay.
Right. So it's like, I know it's not literally heterosexual, but it's very normative to say, like, anyone who's close has to be romantically involved.
They have to be romantically involved, yeah. And I think that's a fair point to make. It's just, whatever it is, these two Andalites definitely have good, pure love for one another. Whether they raw each other sideways half the time doesn't really matter, right? Like, they're just really good friends, and that's what's important to think about.
Guess what? They learned how to use the tail without the blade in very creative ways.
It's very good. It's like how you want to make sure your fingernails are clipped short.
Yeah, never a problem. Because Calluses are gone now.
Okay. I get it now.
Should we? I mean, we can't not talk about like the weird ableism political thing in this book.
It's like the whole book. Like, it's the whole book. It's also the first time it's come up is that talking about disabilities in the series.
It's just showing it off for most of the book that, like, look, Andalites have ableism, which is, like, fine, I guess. I am personally fine with the idea of displaying these things in alien cultures as a mirror to our own human culture. But where it doesn't go anywhere. Which I don't know how to feel about now that I'm talking about it out loud. Like, is it better that they just sort of let it lie, and now this is just something we've learned about as a thing in Andalite culture that's also in ours? Or would it have been a better story if they had a more definitive change my mind moment?
Yeah. Like, Myrtle and Axe had a moment where they talked to each other. I think, like, we mentioned before how it's kind of heavy-handed in this book about how bad Andalite culture is with treating their disabled people. And I think that's just that could just be another failing of the media, because they're books written for little kids. So you want the kids to know that this is a bad thing. We're just going to have Axe be really overt with his hate so that the kids can instantly know, oh yeah, no, this is a bad thing to do.
But there's also a level of, like, I think a lot of people, especially from, like, our generation and a lot of generations before, I don't know when it started or if it's ever really had an ending, but there is a sort of universe where there is a sort of reality in fiction where things like this are presented, but they have the bad opinion haver be like someone close to them, to the main characters, or like someone who doesn't know any better, to sort of, and they portray it it's like a soft, there's a depiction of a sort of soft racism or a sort of like soft ableism as a way, I think, of like, because people are going to know people like this in their lives, or like have some of those opinions themselves even, and they don't want to scare off that audience. And I don't know what my point is there, except to say, isn't that something that happens?
I mean, it's difficult to, like, actually say I think it's okay that it was open-ended in this book, mainly because I don't know if the authors had an idea of how to come down on it without it feeling like an after-school special. I think just the Animorphs having some kind of conversation about it and leaving it a little up in the air is okay, because then it gives a chance to, almost like a book club, if they were to read this book, then you could have leading questions afterwards. Of course, how many times did that happen, right? I doubt at all. If you get your average, like, 9-year-old who just read this book and was just like, so nothing was resolved, so now I don't know, you know? So am I supposed to be like Axe and hate disabled people, or should I be nice to them? Who's to say?
I don't think he hates them. I think he just thinks they have a very certain role in society, which is pretty much as good as, but it's an interesting distinction.
I think, like, the thing that I kept thinking of was the ending of book, Experiment. What book number was that?
28.
28. Do you remember at the end of 28 when they're like, as the audience member, you're thinking like, oh, they're probably gonna have a hard time eating burgers now because of all that shit with the cows. Mm-hmm. And then they're just like, no, we like burgers more now. And it's like, okay, so really, like, the book is really just a slave to the author's politics.
Yeah, and Cassie has a little moment where she's just like, guys, come on, I've got to be a party. Or am I just remembering Cassie saying that because I'm a monster?
Even Cassie is fine with it, because remember...
No, they all go to... Axe eats the burger first. Everyone watches him in rapt delight. Yeah. And then they go and eat more burgers. Or no, Marco eats the burger first.
Somebody, I think I remember at the end, somebody has a moment that's like, really? After all that, you want a burger?
I think it might have been Rachel even, because Marco's the one who comes back with the burger, and then Rachel is like, oh, a burger, really? Because that's their dynamic. But then Rachel goes to order a burger because it looks so good.
I do remember very specifically also reading that, like, K.A. was... The ghostwriter had originally written it as, like, yeah, no, they have a problem with eating meat now. And K.A. was like, no, fuck that. And, like, changed it so they didn't have a problem with eating meat anymore. And all I could think of is, like I don't want to talk shit about the author or anything, but, like, that's clearly, like, oh, you have people who, like, you have family members who own a farm.
Yeah.
Like, that's all I could think of was, like, you have some personal interest in protecting this one thing that, frankly, most people agree that it's pretty bad, even if we all kind of do it anyways.
Exactly.
And that's how I felt about this one. It was like, oh, maybe the author had a brother who, you know, whatever, had a thalidomide hand or something common enough that they could have had it, but also bad, like, quote unquote, bad enough that it would be a big deal. Like, they were trying to make a point.
That makes sense. I feel like, yeah, that definitely makes sense. I do like the bit at the end with that conversation where Tobias is like, let's just take the word normal completely off the table, because who's normal anyway, right? Because he also calls Rachel his girlfriend then. It's very good.
Yay!
But that's also a conversation that I've heard. I mean, I'm not disabled myself, but I have friends who are part of the disabled community, and I follow a couple bloggers online, and this is something I've heard some people talk about, just like, let's take the word normal completely off the table. And, like, I've seen that being talked about in real life now. It's like people shouldn't strive to be normal or to try to be like, this is, you know, the new normal, because there's always going to be someone outside of this bubble of normal. So if we just get rid of trying to strive to be normal as an ideal and just work towards accepting everybody for who they are and where they're at.
Yeah.
And, you know, making sure people don't can get resources that they need to live.
It's true. And it's sort of like the constant problem of any minority group is that, like, there are so many people that don't have that same trait. And it's so easy for any human being to just try to categorize things into what is normal and what isn't.
Yeah. I mean, that's human nature too, right? To draw those kind of distinctions. Yeah.
So maybe our best, like, piece of advice should just be like, please try to recognize when you're being biased. Which is, like, kind of impossible sometimes, I guess. But anyways, yeah, I felt like the politics were kind of just whatever in this one. Maybe it's also because, like, I didn't disagree with any of the characters. It was just like, yeah, no, you shouldn't make fun of people who don't have limbs. It's fucked up, right? The meat one was a totally other different story.
The meat was completely... I do have a question about this book to Braden and Mikhail. Let's say you're in Marco's shoes, you're a teen boy, and you have the house to yourself for the first time in a long time, and you know you're going to be alone for several hours. You really just going to watch TV?
I felt that was a metaphor. He talked about a lot of things, including, and I'm so sorry I'm so sorry to have to deliver the news to everyone out there in Dork-Bajir land. He listened to Kid Rock. So, I mean, if you're Team Tay-Tay like me, Marco's canceled, bae.
I don't even understand, like, a third of what you said in that last sentence.
Damn it.
I'm picking it up. No, Mikhail's too old for your lingo, dude. I get it.
I was, like, working under the assumption that he had already masturbated, and, like, you didn't even have to say it because it was so heavily, like, obviously.
He was channel surfing.
Yeah, we're in the refractory period now where he's just getting ready to do it again. He was watching TMZ hoping for a little bit of...
nip and slipping?
Or just, you know, general. I didn't watch TMZ. Shut up. You did.
Okay, one last thing that I have. The battle at the end is, like, so gruesome. Like, Marco feels a wound and feels bone, but also he keeps saying, oh yeah, so-and-so dragged their lifeless corpse towards me, but I've seen them look worse, so this battle must not be that bad. Like, geez Louise, you guys. These kids have been through too much.
Yeah, there's a lot of grossness. At least Marco didn't get disemboweled this episode.
That boy is always getting limbs chopped off. Speaking of people without limbs.
Hey, that's what Animorphs is about, dog. That's what we're here for.
We kind of skipped over the OTP alert, but I feel like we don't need to go any longer than we already have.
Yeah.
It was nice to see Rachel and Marco teaming up, hanging out. We'll say that.
They kind of got, like, pissed off at each other, though.
It was, like, sneaky, like, too. Like, Rachel stayed behind to talk to Marco covertly, being like, I know you have a plan, because that's how your mind works. I want in. Like, that was kind of cool. Working their strengths together.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. She wasn't doing it as begrudgingly as I would have thought she would do it.
Especially with how they've been characterized lately. Like, their dynamic has really changed in the last little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Also, she didn't do really anything on the mission.
No, she killed the robber fly, which is crazy. How would an eagle catch a bug?
In their mouth.
No, it was with her talon, she said.
I imagine she got it with her mouth and then, like, gripped it between her talons.
Gross.
That's definitely not the craziest thing that happened this episode. Next week, in our bi-weekly episode of The Speaking Tree, we'll be discussing how we would approach the problem of observing and getting into contact with Gaffinolin, and how would you use morphing to deal with not having one of your limbs, as well as how would we use the honeybee morph for purely personal reasons.
You can find more of our stuff if you want to hear more of these dulcet tones. We got our podcast page at collectivelegacy.org, and we've also got a Twitter, Tumblr, Instagram, or Facebook.
Remember to subscribe on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts, or else, God, I will feed you to the crows, who soon I will control with my fucking mightiness. I'll control the crows. I'll take them. I'll be the alpha crow.
You can show your support for my crow training on our Patreon page, patreon.com/DORKBAJIR.
We offer special bonuses for patrons, like access to our Discord server, Animorphs essays written by us, and much more.
We like to give a shout out to our patrons at the Dork-Bajir level or higher by giving them an Animorph style title, starting with...
Big shout out to Spencer Colin, my very good male friend who doesn't need to be in a romantic relationship with me.
Zachary Vaudo, crushing up cocaine under hoof. Hoof cocaine.
Shanna, the place where a tail used to be.
Anne-Marie Ellis, the bee purple.
Martha Urquhart, getting a degree in farming flowers.
Andrew Vila, the less successful sequel.
Michael Armenta, the buffest of Andalites.
Alamist, the idea that love can exist between two dudes, like the ending of Wayne's World will tell you.
Mariah Wamby, the love between two dudes that flourishes, like the end of Wayne's World will tell you.
Anyanka, the hole in my force field.
Steam driven, bees sense of smell.
Nick, the sense of love that blooms between two men and one woman, like at the end of the road to El Dorado.
Greg Della Posta, the Dork-Bajir hiding in my sea can. For the Fanimorphs, my name is Mikhail, the host.
I'm Tessa, the expert.
And I'm Brayden, Red Green's nerdy nephew.
And this has been Animorphs, the Dork-Bajir Galphanakis. I don't fucking know. Whatever. It's a podcast.
Chronicles.
No, this is Fanimorphs. Fanimorphs, the Dork-Bajir Chronicles.
Wow, that's actually too good. I don't think we can use that. That might alert the government with how good that was.
Got like a special alarm just for us that beeps. It's like, oh, they're becoming sentient.
That might alert the government.
What do you want to eat right now? Jinx. I'm Mitch.
And I'm Sophie. And this is
We Watch Food,
a podcast all about the food we like to watch.
We'll talk all about the best, the craziest, and the tastiest TV, movies, and YouTube channels.
Not to mention trendy food fads and sumptuous food trivia.
Plus, we end every episode with a recipe from one of us.
So join us every Saturday for a new episode and a new insight into what makes us watch so much food.
You can find us at collectivelegacy.org, as well as a bunch of other awesome podcasts.
Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at We Watch Food.
And on Twitter at We Watch Food Pod. So I've been Mitch.
I'm Sophie.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Brought to you by
Collective Legacy.
a podcast network.